Welcome back, soul friends. It's Tannaz Hosseinpour with another episode of the Minutes on Growth podcast. Today we have a very special guest, Ravinder Taylor. She is the lead author of a very exciting book that I highly recommend everyone to read called Mind Training: The Science of Self-Empowerment. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Tanaz. It's an honor to be with you, and I look forward to just a really fun conversation about how we can improve ourselves.
I love that because we're living in a period in time where hashtag self-growth, personal development, mindset is becoming more and more talked about, which is great, especially because, when I was growing up, my parents would be like, oh, if this person is over a certain age, they're not going to change. And I was so curious about that of like, why they thought that way because when we were in school there was like, oh, we're talking about neuroplasticity and how the mind can change. And then I did some research and I realized, like up until a couple of decades ago, that's what like the scientists thought. So let's talk about that shift of mind being fixed to now saying no, we can create new neural pathways.
Absolutely. The fact is, neuroplasticity is basically our ability to learn.
Mhm.
And it is a whole lot stronger when we're younger. It's a lot easier to learn everything. And then, there was this idea that got put out there, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah.
Um, it is hard. As you get older, lots of things become harder.
Mhm.
You do have to work harder to keep yourself physically fit. You reach a point where you can't just rely on what you've always done. You have to make some changes, and so it is with your mind as well. We learn habits, we learn routines, we learn, you know, who we think we are. There is that expression, neurons that fire together, wire together. These things get stronger and stronger, these ideas and these beliefs, so they become automatic.
Mhm.
uh, Kahneman talks about, he's the behavioral economist who won a Nobel Prize for his work. His book is the Thinking Fast and Slow, and he talks about system one and system two thinking. Now that's not a hard fast, that's not real, but it does serve as a model to show us what's going on, because the system one thinking is the automatic. We
Mhm.
go into automatic pilot, we have these beliefs, these biases, and we can forget where these ideas come from.
Mhm.
Whereas the system two thinking is that more careful, thoughtful approach.
Mhm.
With mind training, we take that approach over everything. We try to show you how you've learned behaviors, where these ideas and beliefs come from, and then we highlight all the places where you can change them. Lots of our behaviors are based on old teachings,
Mhm.
old beliefs. What may have worked for us back when we were young doesn't work for us now. So we absolutely can create changes. We just have to make a bit of an effort. And as adults, that is totally in our favor, because we're in a place now where we can choose who we want to be. We
Mhm.
don't have to be something that, society and enculturation and nurturing and genetics has put on us. There are lots of places where we can make changes to improve our lives. That's not going to say that you can become Michael Jordan just because you believe that you're good at basketball. It doesn't mean that at all. You're not necessarily going to become an expert in any of these fields, but you can become the best version of you. We have lots of self-sabotaging beliefs locked away in our subconscious mind, and learning how to retrieve those things and then change some of those pairings, some of those neuron firings that happen automatically, well, that's only to our benefit.
Mhm. Such an empowering thought that I get to choose who I who I am as an adult in this moment in my life, regardless of who I've been in the past. What role does repetition play in this process?
Repetition, the more you work at things, the easier they become. Repetition, we've taken on board lots of negative beliefs. The When it comes to bad, bad has a lot more power over us than good. So, say, for example, you go up for a review at work and your employer tells you 10 good things about you. And then he says, but there is this area. That's the only thing you're going to think about afterwards. That's what's going to churn around in your head. And there are evolutionary psychology reasons for why we do that. We are herd animals. If we can't be special, we at least want to be normal. And being frowned upon by the herd, you know, that when it comes to evolution, that could have disastrous consequences because if you get pushed out of the herd, you're on your own. And you're totally vulnerable. Well, today we still have, those beliefs that the herd will protect us, which it does, societies, civilization, that all holds. But having these beliefs that we have to conform to the herd, well, that isn't necessarily in our best interest. The fact is, we can find lots of examples in the past where the herd is actually wrong
Mm-hmm.
in their beliefs. The classic example there, of course, is going to be black slavery, but it
Mm-hmm.
goes a whole lot further than that. I remember growing up in England, the sentiments towards homosexuality, gay jokes were so normal that even when I was in elementary school, everybody made these kinds of comments. Today, we know that that is wrong. So, being able to choose who we want to be today, to stop and think again about some of the beliefs, some of the things that we do, and then deciding again to create changes. Now, with the repetition, these beliefs have come in because they get repeated, and bad has a whole lot more power. So it's going to take a whole lot more positive to overcome that. It's going to take a lot more positive to change that automatic wiring. um, so yeah, that helps, but I think a bigger part of it too comes down to willpower.
Mm-hmm.
Willpower wears out. And when we get tired, it's a lot harder to make decisions, to make healthy choices. We're a lot more likely to break our resolve regarding diets or alcohol or whatever when we're feeling tired and we're feeling stressed. So, with willpower, there are strategies that you can put into place to take the willpower element out of it. If you can create a pairing of some kind, so again, neurons that wire together, if you can create a pairing that works for you. So, for example, if you want to get up early in the mornings to exercise, rather than opening your eyes in the morning and trying to decide, do I feel up to exercise today? I want to exercise, but bed feels too comfortable. You've got that choice in that moment, and you're going to fail more often than you succeed if you do that because you're tired. Bed feels comfortable. Who wants to get up? But if you've decided the day before, the second my alarm goes off, I'm going to jump out of bed. You see,
Yeah.
for lots of us, we might hit the snooze button. We
Yeah.
might say just a couple more minutes. But if you resolve ahead of time, as soon as this happens, I will do this, then it's going to be a lot easier to, you're going to be successful a whole lot more. And that applies to lots of different areas, like if you're trying to stick to a particular diet, but you're going to be going out to friends, being aware of the temptation ahead of time and having a plan in place. You create that pairing ahead, and then when it actually comes along, it's a lot easier to keep it. So it takes a lot of positive to counteract negative, but there's additional tools that you can put into play.
I love that you shared that. Something that worked for me in terms of like morning meditation, because the art of snoozing is like so strong, especially in the winter. So what I ended up doing is I just changed my alarm to a guided meditation. So in the morning when it goes off, I'm into meditation. I'm like pushed into it. And that worked really well for me. And I always like share it with my clients, my friends. I'm like, just make it easier for yourself. And that's pretty much what we're saying, like set yourself up for success because the chances of like it backfiring if you don't is pretty high.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's a brilliant idea to have a meditation or affirmations that you wake up to first of all. That's a gorgeous way to start your day. Excellent tip. I may, start incorporating that one.
Thank you. Um, okay, so willpower, forget willpower. And as you were saying that, I thought of, Mel Robbins, and she has this really nice reel where she's like, when you wake up in the morning, throw yourself off the bed and that just physical shock to your body kind of wakes you up. So really it's like these small practical steps of putting yourself into action and like discipline trumping motivation. What are some other tools besides repetition and just, these practical steps of setting yourself up for success? Some other suggestions that you might have for us.
There are loads of tools in mind training. I wanted to keep that very science based. I
Hmm.
wanted to keep it very down to earth, very solid. I wanted to create things that truly work. Now, lots of the tools and techniques that you have in mind training are very simple to implement. In fact, they can become so simple that people will dismiss them. There's this story that we share around here. If I can share that with
Of
you,
course.
I think it illustrates the point really well. We call it time and pomegranates.
Hmm.
So there is this young man who has heard about this great healer that lives up in the mountains, and he wants to go and learn from the very best. So he goes up to the mountain and goes up to this healer, begs and pleads to be taken on as a student, and the healer agrees and starts the training. One day, this other man, elderly gentleman, comes up the mountain. He's got a cane, his back is crooked, he has difficulty walking, and he goes up to the healer and he explains all of his problems that he has. And after hearing him out, the healer turns to him and said, there is an chemical in pomegranates. That is what your body needs. Go away and eat 3 pomegranates a day. So the elderly gentleman goes away, does as he's told, comes back upright without his cane, all perfectly great. Some time goes on. The student is still learning from the master. Some time goes on, and another gentleman comes up looking very much like the first. Again, his back is bent over. He's got his walking cane. He's got this tremble in his hands. And as he's walking up, the student turns to the master and says, I've got the answer. I've got the answer. Allow me to go treat him. And the master says, fine, go ahead. And so the student runs up to this guy and says, you have to have 3 pomegranates a day. Go away and eat 3 pomegranates and you'll be well. And the patient says, you fool, what, you don't know anything, that is just ridiculous. Don't be stupid. I've wasted my time coming up here, and walks away. Now, that what had happened was the healer turned to him and said that to the student and said, you didn't hear him out. Part of the treatment is hearing the full problem. Being heard by your doctor goes a long way to you taking the advice of the doctor, and therefore it goes a great way to you becoming healed. So what I've got in mind training and how this relates, lots of the tools and techniques are very, very simple, but you're going to dismiss them unless you have all of the proof, all of the evidence, and you actually see the benefits. So a really simple technique, Tannaz, is smile. Smiling, even putting on a fake smile, by holding a pencil between your teeth. Just doing that, your brain will produce endorphins. When I first heard that, I thought that was crazy. That was dumb, you know? But I dug into the research for that, and that does exactly happen. But the benefits go well beyond that, because when you're smiling, you are more attractive. You attract people to you. So what they found, there was two different research studies that I looked at. One looked at baseball cards, and the other looked at high school photographs. And they were able to predict, based on this photograph of this individual, how long they would live, how happy they would be, how successful they would be, their financial outcome, the kinds of relationships. And it all came down to the smile. The smile. Now, what they've got, there's different kinds of smiles. There is that small little smile, and then, it goes all the way up to the full Duchenne smile. The Duchenne smile goes all the way up to your eyes, where your eyes crinkle up, you know. So that is the full Duchenne smile. And when they were looking at these pictures, they found that the people who had the full Duchenne smile would live an average of 7 years longer than those who weren't smiling. If they had just a small smile, then they would live an average of 2 years longer. And it isn't just, as I said, it's not just living longer. It's about having better relationships, being more financially successful. It goes across the board, and it is such a simple technique. So you can use it today. One of the things that I started doing ever since COVID, because everyone was washing their hands more thoroughly, more frequently, and I turned hand washing into a bit of a meditation. So I would, employ some mindfulness. I would focus on the water over my hands. I would be focusing on appreciating it, appreciating being clean, the nice warm water. But then I would look up in the mirror and I would smile to myself, and I would tell myself something positive. You've got this, Ravinder. You can do it. It's okay. This is fine. You're gonna do great. And that sets you up
Mm-hmm.
to have a much better day. That sets you up to creating success, not only for today, but throughout your life. So it's a really simple technique, but it's incredibly powerful. You just have to be aware of quite how powerful it is. I'm amazed when you start paying attention to it. I'm amazed at the number of people who don't smile.
Yeah.
In fact, then when I tell them to smile, they think it's silly, and they find it difficult to
Mm-hmm.
even put on a
Mm-hmm.
pretend smile that looks slightly genuine. They can put on a clown smile, but that they have difficulty doing. I'd say practice smiling.
Mm-hmm.
When you see somebody, smile at them. If you can think about how that other person feels, that can make it easier, because you'll help that other person feel better, and that'll reflect back on you and the kinds of interactions you're having. These small interactions make a huge difference in the world. So practice smiling, make it more normal. Ask your friends and family how much of a smiler you are. As I said, I was shocked when I started paying attention to it, to how many people don't smile, even in greeting. You get that, especially kids today, you get that reverse head nod, that acknowledgement that says, hi, they're going to be super cool. And these things, again, become a habit. And so our kids today are developing that particular habit, and that's not going to hold them in good stead, but we can make the change. We just have to choose to make that change.
I love that you said that because my husband needs to hear this episode. I have this big sticker on his mirror, bathroom mirror, that says smile. It's so big. And he's like, why is there, when I first, but he's like, why is the sticker there? I'm like, just as a reminder to smile in the mornings, because he's always smiling throughout the day. But mornings, it's like he doesn't wake up with a smile. So it's great. It kind of like reminds you, and when you read smile, I feel like you naturally smile because it's like like the mirror neuron, like it's telling you to do something. You're like, oh, okay. But I want to
Yeah.
bring culture into this because when you were saying you're so surprised that some people don't smile, I come from an Iranian culture and I heard growing up, and I always had like the big smile and my eyes would crinkle. And my mom would be like, Tannaz, like, you're gonna get wrinkles. Stop smiling like that. Or they'd be like girls, like I would hear like the older generations be like, if a girl smiles too big, it looks desperate. It looks like she's putting herself out there. And so I look at family photos of previous generations. No one smiled, especially the woman didn't smile. So cultural beliefs play a big role.
They play a huge role. I totally relate to what you're saying. When I was young, my mom would tell me not to show my teeth when I smiled. The idea too about getting wrinkles around your eyes. What is fascinating there was some research done. I think this was out of Cardiff University in Wales. And what they found was women who had Botox treatment for frown lines were happier. Women who had Botox treatment for the wrinkles, the smile lines around the mouth and around the eyes, they were more depressed. It's a two-way street here as well. So don't don't be upset over your laughter lines. They are the key. Think about it. Think of old people. Beauty in, you're back to culture here. Culture tends to think that young people are beautiful and older people aren't. And I hate those stereotypes. I
Right.
think some of the most beautiful people, some of the most beautiful pictures I've seen can be that older person, their face fully lined, but they're laughing. And those lines are just from all the laughter that they've had in life. And I think that is beauty. Isn't that the kind of old age that we all want to aim for, where it's full of laughter and joy?
Mhm.
So I would say stop worrying about laughter lines, wrinkles. Those wrinkles are actually going to do you good. You will produce more of the happy brain chemicals, and that has this rippling effect through your life with your relationship, success, prosperity, health. It is great. But enculturation plays really huge plays a
Mhm.
huge role in lots of different areas. It's really rather amazing when you look at the placebo response.
Mhm.
The placebo response can be one of the best places to look at when you look at the power of the mind. So there was one set of research I looked at, and they were looking at asthmatic patients, and they had both bronchodilators and bronchoconstrictors. When they told the asthmatic patient that they were being treated with a bronchodilator, which would make it easier for them to breathe, but they really gave them a bronchoconstrictor, the
Mhm.
fact that they were told it was a bronchodilator, they had they found it easier to breathe, and vice versa. If they gave them a bronchodilator and told them it was a bronchoconstrictor, they would have difficulty breathing. The placebo effect is adjusted for in all drug research. They try to make sure that it goes beyond the placebo effect, which is fair in drug research. They want to know exactly what it is that is causing the positive benefit. But I think a great deal more research needs to be done on activating the placebo response. But bringing this back to culture, one of the things that I found, so the placebo response for cardiac issues, for blood pressure, for hypertension. That was a word that I lost for a moment. The placebo response for hypertension in Germany is particularly low. But when they looked at the placebo response for gastric ulcers, that was really low in Venezuela. It was higher in Europe. It was highest in Germany.
Ravinder, we just lost you. Okay, we're back.
So yeah, I found it really fascinating for the placebo response. It for gastric ulcers, as I said, it's lowest in Venezuela, higher in Europe, highest in Germany. We are taking on board information all the time from around us, the enculturation that goes on and all the beliefs that we absorb. It's up to us to make changes. I consider myself pretty science based, but I'm open to alternative medicine. I my family comes from India, and my mom was very much into herbal remedies. They always have
Hmm.
their classic treatments for everything, and I've always found that fascinating. So for me, herbal remedies, homeopathic remedies, these things work well on me. But when I try to get my boys, they're in their 20s and 30s now, when I try to get them into these kinds of alternatives, their response is, oh, that's just placebo. That's a waste of time, as though I'm being weak-willed. But the fact is, I am healing myself without having any bad side effects.
Hmm.
These things will work on me because I don't have the blocks in place that say that it's not going to work. See, a great deal of what goes on is we block ourselves, we create self sabotaging behaviors, we have beliefs within us that obstruct us on the pathway to success in lots of different areas. We all have self destructive behaviors somewhere in our lives, and all of that information comes from the subconscious mind.
Wow. I wanted to touch on this because what I noticed, I tried out this placebo experiment with my grandmother a couple of years ago, and over the years, she has created an identity for herself as being a sick person. And growing up, she loved having like a mini pharmacy in her house and just having a medication for everything. And this, like, oh, poor me, I'm always sick and there's always something happening to me. And so she was in Toronto and I gave her these gummies and I told her, Grandma, like, take these. These are the strongest sleeping pills in the market. And she's always been taking like lorazepam and those type of medication for sleep. And it's been long-term medication. Next day she wakes up and I said, how was your sleep? She said, it was the best sleep I've ever had. This is the best medication you've given me. It's even stronger than the ones I'm taking. And I can't lie. So I just burst into laughter and I said, oh my God, I was joking with you. These are gummy bears. That night, from that moment onwards, when I gave her gummy bears, it did nothing for her because I think it just, she went back to that identity, those self-sabotaging beliefs of, I am always sick. There's always something wrong with me. And then creating an identity around that. Can we talk about how beliefs and identity self-sabotage us?
There's two elements to what you were saying there. Your grandmother, prior to you revealing to her that you had lied to her about the gummies, she must have thought very highly of you. She
Mhm.
must have thought highly of your intelligence. Um, Research shows that the judgment part of your mind, the prefrontal cortex, shuts down in the presence of an authority figure. So you automatically intake information. With you and your grandmother, that was great because that made the gummy bears work for her. It's not necessarily so good when you go to the doctor's office and they are trying to dismiss whatever symptoms that you've got. You just shut down and listen to what they're saying. So you have that element of it that comes into play. I would have told you, don't ever tell her the answer. Allow her to believe that because it's a lot healthier for her
Mhm.
to take the gummy bears rather than the other. But when it comes to identity, we also, the work that I've been doing for the past 35 years now, a huge element of that comes down to self responsibility. There is this idea And you've got to be cautious how you take this information. But there is this idea that lots of illness is actually self-created. It is created out of some benefit that you can gain from it. So maybe you get extra attention. Maybe you give yourself permission to take a day off of work. Maybe you give yourself permission to have some self-care. But illness can be self-created. As I said, you take it with a pinch of salt. I'm not going to use this to judge other people. That isn't my place. But when you take self-responsibility for yourself, when you apply it just to yourself, I should say, it can open up doors of possibilities for you. And I have my own personal story with this. I've got two children. I'm vegetarian. I was vegetarian. I'm vegan now, but I was vegetarian at the time. But with my oldest son, I had a craving for chicken, huge craving for chicken. And I indulged because as a child, I was brought up, chicken was a meat that my family would eat. With my second son, I had a craving for beef. Now, my family are Sikhs, not Hindus, but we've got lots of Hindu friends and, extended family. There's lots of Hindus there, and the Hindus don't eat beef. So I rarely had beef as a child. But there I am, pregnant with my second child. I'm looking at ads in the newspaper for beef burgers, and I'm drooling at them. I gave into it once. I got a McDonald's, and my husband was absolutely amazed that I scarfed this beef burger down. Absolutely. But then after that, I avoided it. I replaced it some with chicken and a great deal of salmon. After my second child was born, very quickly afterwards, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. By the time my son was 3 months old, I was having difficulty even changing his diaper because I couldn't hold his legs with one arm. My shoulder just hurt too much. I couldn't lift his legs with one arm to put the diaper underneath. There were lots of situations like that. I felt dreadful. I mean, how the heck was I going to take care of my child with this? Now, I was on meds for it, and the meds helped a lot. I tried to bring in the power of belief. I'm going to heal myself. And I tried to come off the meds a few times. That did not work. Even on the meds, I could have flare-ups. But I took this idea of self-responsibility. Like, okay, why am I doing this to myself? What do I gain out of this? Why am I trying to punish myself? When you start asking yourself questions like that, you can get some pretty crazy answers coming forward. And not all the answers that come forward are going to be real. Who knows which ones are real and which ones aren't? But in my instance, my second child was a boy. I had wanted a girl. The pregnancy was totally different. You know how they talk about if you carry the baby high, it's a boy or it's a girl, and vice versa, or if it's big. My second pregnancy was totally different to my first pregnancy. So I was convinced it was a girl. I'd always wanted a girl. All the signs indicated that it was a girl. I had named the girl. I was talking to the girl. And then I had a boy. Now, before having my second child, I had all of these concerns, like lots of mothers do. How am I going to love my second child without taking away from my first? I didn't know how I was going to do that. But nature has the perfect remedy for that. In scientific terms, there is that big boost of oxytocin that comes on. For me, my experience, and it was a very spiritual experience to me, I felt my love double, my capacity for love double. I didn't have to take anything away from my first child. So I give birth, I hear them say it's a boy. There's that brief surprise shock. And then it was welcome, William, because we had chosen a name just in case it was a boy. I didn't think it was going to happen, but immediately, welcome William, and I held him, and full mama bear came out. I would kill anyone that hurt my child. I was totally protective. This was my child. The bonding with my second child was easier than with my first child because I didn't have all the nerves of a first time mother. So I had these big, strong feelings, the amount of love for my second child. But then there was that small part inside of me that said, am I being unfaithful, even thinking about this child, this imaginary child in my head that was a girl? Am I being unfaithful to that child that was alive in my head? It wasn't, I don't know if that's where the conflict came from, but I entertained all of these different ideas. Is it possible that I wanted more attention from my husband after my child was born? I don't know. But I played with all of these ideas. I also worked with, we have the inner talk subliminal programs. This was something that my husband created. It's patented. It's been researched by numerous independent universities and institutions and been demonstrated effective at changing your self-talk. And we talked about the repetition, about canceling out negative beliefs. Well, when you use a correctly created subliminal self-help program, that can be an automatic way to get that repetition to override those negative beliefs. You can play them. I played the accelerated healing program all night, every night for 15 months. So I was constantly bombarding my subconscious mind with beliefs that I could heal myself, that my body was perfect, that I could do all of that. So I had the self-responsibility aspect of it. I had the repetition and trying to reprogram the subconscious mind automatically. And then I heard about a supplement that was having really good results. CMO, you can buy this supplement at Amazon now, it's freely available. But when I heard about it, Dr. Sands, who discovered it, was alive still, and he was doing the research and he was having all of these wonderful results with it. And I could contact his office. I had to make sure there weren't any negative aspects to it because I was breastfeeding my child at the time. I had to be sure of that. And I got through all of that. I took these capsules twice a day, two in the morning, two at night, for 2 weeks. I came off of my RA meds. A week after, I had a pain in my shoulder again. I took the RA meds morning, night, and morning. The pain went away. I came off the meds. A week after, the pain came back. I took the meds twice, came off it. A week after that, took the meds once, came off it. I've not taken RA meds for 25 years. Mm. It's totally clear. So the question, I don't know. I don't know the answers. I don't know which aspect helped. It could be, as I said, CMO is easily available today. Amazon, you can buy it anywhere. I do go to the place. I've suggested it for friends and family, and if I'm buying it for somebody else, I will go back to the original. Dr. Sands had said that. See, the other interesting part of CMO, and again, I don't know what role it played, but the original CMO, the one that Dr. Sands recommends, is an extract of beef. I'd had this craving of beef that I refused to give into. And now I found my solution in a supplement that contains beef. Now, as I said, CMO is available. There aren't many people reporting being cured of RA taking it. So is it that it worked as a placebo for me? I just needed that additional push. I had done the inner work. I'd looked at the psychology behind it all. I had programmed my mind to expect health, but I just needed an additional push. I don't know. I don't know the answer. Lots of these things, we're not going to know the answer But would I recommend someone else go through the same process I went to? Absolutely. You do what you can to improve your life and to live strong and healthy. The mind is incredibly powerful. I found a way to get my mind to heal itself. Which aspect of the techniques I used was the effective one? I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all of them. But that's, the power of placebo and beliefs in action.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. Oof, when you said it had the beef extract, I was like, the body is so smart. Like that voice, that intuition, the whatever you want to call it, right? Whatever resonates with you. But um it's I love that you said I don't know, and that's usually what I tell people because I'm always talking about spiritual concepts and they're like, how do you know? I'm like, I don't know. But what I do know is this belief makes me feel empowered and makes me feel like I'm not alone, makes me feel supported, protected. I'd rather live in a world where I feel protected and supported than to live in like a jungle. This is a jungle you gotta like kill to survive type of life. It's literally you just, what reality do you want to live in? Pick that one.
There's a great deal of science behind spirituality and religion as well. You don't have to be religious, but having these practices, there is so much work that has been done in that area
Mhm.
about people who are religious or spiritual living longer, healthier, happier. Again, they don't know what elements of it cause that. Is it the community, the ritual? I actually believe that, faith plays a huge role in an example I give is, imagine yourself as a child. You're in school and you're sick, you're hurting. You get taken to the nurse. The nurse is very kindly taking care of you, but it doesn't compare to the relief you feel when mom or dad appear. And even better, when they take you home, put you on the sofa, put your favorite TV on, they're there, they're protecting you, and you can let go. You don't have to have all of these fears of, I don't feel well, my body's not working right, this isn't going on, I'm scared. No, you turn it over to mom and dad to fix it. And faith has lots of those elements as well. When you can turn it over to God, when you have that belief, then just your body chemistry, your brain chemistry, you're going to turn off all of those stress hormones, the cortisol, and you'll turn on those happy brain chemicals that help your body function better. And once again, you're in that cycle of creating a better future for yourself. It's not only about today. See, what you had said was you would rather feel that way, but it doesn't just have its effect today. It has its effect on tomorrow and the day after that, and it has its effect on your longevity. I've looked at a lot of the work about positivity and optimism, and again, they have the same kinds of ramifications. Johns Hopkins study looked at more positive people, and they found that if you have a positive outlook, even if you have a family predisposition to heart disease, you're still a third less likely to develop heart disease. There was a longitudinal study they did on nurses, and they found the most optimistic of the nurses would experience much reduced likelihoods of cardiac disease, stroke. I'm not talking about 5-10%. When it comes to infectious diseases, it was over 50% less likely to die of an infectious disease just through being optimistic, of being positive, about having a positive outlook. So if you can find ways to ingrain more positivity in your life, you'd said at the beginning, what kinds of simple tools are there? One of the ways is a gratitude journal. If every night you write down in your journal things that you appreciate, it changes the focus in your mind. It has you thinking differently. So, you know, you get the good brain chemicals coming on right now. You feel good in the moment, but it has effects that last, that go on further. So they looked, I think it was Barbara Fredrickson, I think at Michigan State University, termed it the upward spirals effect. So she was looking at, you know, having some of these practices to increase gratitude and optimism today. And then they looked down the highway. In that particular instance, she was looking six weeks down. They've done others where they've looked years down the highway, and they've actually looked at the number of stressful events that people experience. And they found that the more optimistic people reported fewer stressful events. Now, it's not that their lives are different, it's not that things don't happen, but they don't interpret it as stressful. It doesn't get out of control for them. They're not feeling down because of it.
Mhm.
So, again, coming back to your idea of faith and spirituality, you bring that in, it's going to have long term results for you. It is so significant, the spiritual, that I've heard that they've, in California, they have secular churches. So they try to bring in the elements of a classical church. You know, you have community, you get together regularly on Sundays. Maybe you sing together. Maybe you say nice things to each other. Maybe you have an inspirational talk. They actually have secular churches. Now, for me, back to the example of the child who is sick in school, or the faith that you have when you can turn it over to God, there is still a huge element missing from that. Um, but you do what you can. As I said, spirituality doesn't have to invoke religion.
Mhm.
It can just be the feeling of awe that you know, we're on this tiny blue planet in the middle of, we're just a tiny speck having an experience. And that is awesome too. So if you think of spirituality in those contexts, you know, you don't have to go down the religion pathway. You just, there is a force out there that has allowed you to be here, whatever that may be. And having gratitude for that is going to hold you in good stead too.
I love that. I love that. As you were sharing that, you know, faith and just that experience. I also want to just, I know we're running out of time, but just take it even one step further of how it impacts the body in response to challenges. We were, I was just in Southeast Asia for 4 months. I was actually doing research on the interconnectedness of faith and mental health. And there was an incident with me and my husband. He was visiting. He lost his keys. He, in that moment that he lost his keys, started to panic. And I felt heart rate going up and he got stressed. I, on the other hand, always have this belief that everything is happening for us. So I was like, there's that we have a word in it in Farsi and Arabic, khair, like there's a blessing behind it. So I was like, don't worry about it. We're just meant to be here a little bit longer. Everything's gonna be okay. And just the way the body's responding. So it's the belief of, okay, this is happening for a reason. For his, it's, oh my God, what am I gonna do? There's gonna be so many problems because that foundation's not there. Now his body is experiencing dysregulation, whereas mine isn't. And then that kind of feeds into the mind body connection and that loop. So it really can help the whole process.
It absolutely does. You know, when your body is under stress, your heart rate increases, brainwave activity starts getting frantic. And it's hard to think clearly when you're in that place. When you can calm your system down, when you can slow down that brainwave activity, well, that allows the answers to come back. So that gives you the ability to say, okay, well, when was the last time I saw my keys? And you can actually start remembering all the steps that you went through, and it makes it a whole lot more likely that you're going to find your keys. Being panicked and being stressed, that shuts things down. That's the fight flight response, you're going to run, you're going to be in protective mode. And that isn't good for, not good for your health, not good for your body, not good for your interactions or your stress levels. So, yes, it all adds up, it all accumulates. So, the best thing that you can do. And again, if you can turn it over to aspects of faith, that's only going to reinforce it.
Mhm.
But even if it's not, you can just go totally scientific and say, if I'm uptight and stressed and I'm panicking about this, it's going to be harder for me to remember. So just find a way to calm down, find your happy place, to create these models in your mind. I do a lot of hypnotherapy, progressive relaxation. See, hypnosis and meditation and mindfulness, they're all related practices, and there's lots of work that shows the effects of meditation. But just bringing all of this into play, that progressive relaxation, just calm your body down, slows down brainwave activity, and it allows you to function a whole lot more efficiently.
I love that. Thank you for sharing all these, again, like these suggestions, meditation, hypnosis, um, progressive muscle relaxation, all these different tools that are at our disposal right now. And that, you talk about in your book, the different strategies. So, how can people purchase the book? How can people connect with you?
The book is Mind Training, The Science of Self-Empowerment. You can buy it anywhere books are sold. You can buy it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If your local bookstore doesn't have it, they can order it. So yes, it's available everywhere. To keep in touch with me, and I would love to hear feedback from your audience as to what they think, or the kinds of results they get as they put some of these techniques into place, even if they don't get the book and look at all the other techniques. We have shared plenty right now, and I would love to hear from them. My website is Ravinder. My email is ravinder@ravindertaylor.com. That's what I was about to say. The website is simply ravindertaylor.com. So that's RAV for Victor, IND for dog, Ravinder at ravindertaylor.com. If you go to my website, subscribe to our newsletter, you can also get a free copy of our Forgiving and Letting Go Inner Talk program. So you can actually try some of this out for yourself and actually feel for yourself the kinds of effects that you can get. So yes, go to my website, ravindertaylor.com, sign up for the newsletter there, get the free forgiving program, try out these techniques. Let me know how they do for you. And if you have any other questions, I'd love to hear from you. You can
Amazing.
also find me, of course, on Facebook and Instagram. Just search for Ravinder Taylor
Amazing. And
and
I'll
you'll
put
get me.
that all in the show notes so it's easily accessible. Thank you so, so much for sharing your insights with us. And yeah, it's been a pleasure hearing about all the studies and all the techniques and strategies that you've put into this work, 35 years of research. So I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on, Tannaz. I've enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so
Likewise.
much, and thanks for the opportunity.
Of course. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Speak soon.